dynamic sexuality advocate, storyteller, podcast host, known for her warm, inclusive approach to exploring the full spectrum of human desire and identity. Our most wonderful guest today is Pepper Cat. With a keen focus on empathy and openness, she has built a platform in award-winning Spicy Spectrum podcast that challenges societal norms and invites diverse voices to share their personal journeys. Through candid conversations and thoughtful insights, Pepper Cat inspires listeners to embrace vulnerability, celebrate uniqueness, and foster a deeper understanding of sexuality beyond traditional boundaries. There's so much to learn about Pepper: her background in journalism, transition to adult content creator, her award-winning innovations, her vision for the future, and as a creator of Dream Girl Chronicles and the Create Your Dream Girl Experience. Feels like I'm talking about 5 people, but no, this is all down to one person. So I think the first question to ask, really, it's probably the hardest one, but who is Pepper Cat? How do you define or describe yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm Pepper Cat. I've been an adult entertainer for about 3 years, going on 4 in June. I am a podcaster. I am a sex worker. I am a former news producer, and I started as a news producer, and I did that for about 3 years or so, and then I eventually broke off and I went full time into the adult industry. I love it. I love being open with my sexuality and making others feel comfortable with their desires and not feel ashamed. And I enjoy providing a safe place for people to come to see me and do their shadow work and indulge in a space and in a world where it's taboo to do what we do in my personal space with them. That's who I am.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because there is still this stigma or taboo about a lot of these topics. And we talk about so many things in life, we talk about politics and about violence and about so many things. And the one thing you would hope that would connect people, sort of sensuality, sexuality, understanding who we are, etc., we still seem to have this taboo and stigma around it. Do you know why that is?
I think a big part of it is that we first don't even talk about it. A lot of us
Yeah.
are, at least for me, I was raised in a super religious environment where we didn't talk about it in school. I went to Catholic school my entire
Yeah.
life, and it was just something that we just never discussed. It was something that I felt shameful about growing up, with me having any sort of desires to explore. And I just think, for the most part, I believe it's a lot to do with religion, as well as a Puritan culture in terms of us not always being open to
Yeah.
taboo topics that make us feel uncomfortable. Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it, when you're sort of, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 and start having certain feelings and you think, oh, if I touch myself, it feels nice. And then priest or nun says, you're going to go to hell. It's quite
Yeah.
upsetting, isn't it? It's sort of, okay, you're right, I better not do that again. And then every time you do it, there's still that sort of slight guilt in the back of your mind about how sex is for procreation. It's not something we should be enjoying. And I certainly shouldn't be enjoying anything that's slightly different than the norm. So was it a difficult or a big step from? I mean, news journalism to adult content creator is quite different. Was it
It
something
is.
you had in mind for a while, or how did you make the leap?
So when I was a news producer, I actually came across someone who was a phone sex operator, and she was talking about her experience doing camming and how she had so much financial freedom and how she felt like she experienced life differently as someone who knew the full truth of what it meant to be human as well, too.
Yeah,
And I thought it was a great way for me to gain more financial freedom, to travel, as well as get to know myself and others. I do have a background in psychology too, so I
yeah,
think that curiosity too of me wondering what was behind or what happens in the dark that I just didn't know. and me being open to that sort of information and being indulging in deviant activities in a safe place
Yeah.
was I was very curious about it too. And so I would I would sell panties, and I did a little camming where I wore a mask while I was a news producer, and then
Mhm.
I found that I enjoyed it. I was comfortable doing it, and it was something that I saw myself doing, and that's when I quit my job to become a phone sex operator first, and then it transitioned into camming and OnlyFans and my own adult company, and then my podcast. Yeah.
And people that I've talked to, so particularly people that do OnlyFans, one of the things they talk about is the control they have over what they want to do and the ability to decide how often to work and what money they want to make and what path to follow. And there's not that many careers where you do get that opportunity to actually be in control. And I think I think things like OnlyFans and camming and setting up your own business, that seems to have given back some of the freedom that perhaps was lost with some of the big porn aggregators. Things like I guess YouPorn and Pornhub and stuff. They get 3 billion hits a month, but that money doesn't make its way to you. it's
Right.
it's some big
Yeah.
corporation that owns it. So I think OnlyFans seems a lot more. It's a lot more honest. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it does confuse me too why, we didn't see this much ruckus when strip clubs and porn companies, when that was really popular. I didn't
Yeah.
see as much pushback against adult entertainment until OnlyFans and camming came to be. And I'm always curious as to why, which I mean, I think I know why people have a big problem with OnlyFans, for example, but it wasn't as much pushback when there was more control for sex workers to not have more control over
Yeah.
what they do and how much money they make,
Mm.
which I do appreciate platforms like OnlyFans because I do get to adjust my prices. I can block
Mhm.
anyone who makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't have to do anything that I don't feel like I have to do to make money.
Mm.
I can take control of my own content.
I think if you go back throughout history, sex has always been something that it sounds a bit crazy, but men have controlled in a way. So back to whenever it was when people first started having brothels and then having pimps and then having control over the industry, the directors, the producers, all of those. I mean, thankfully now there are some women ran porn companies that create different
Right.
sort of content, which is much more. It feels much more realistic.
Yeah.
I've got teenage children, and certainly when I was growing up, pornography was a magazine page, perhaps torn out of Playboy and passed around. That was, oh my god, it's a naked woman. Oh my god,
Yeah.
and that was so exciting. But now, if you're 12, 13, as soon as you get a smartphone, you can pretty much access anything, which I think is hard when that's before people understand what relationships are all about. That's why I think a lot of the women created content, a lot of the content that women on their own create is a lot more honest, and there's an understanding about consent and about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, all those things. Because I
Yeah.
mean, whatever anybody wants to do, it's fine. If someone wants to sleep with one person, two people, 10 people, whatever, as long as it's consensual and it's something both parties, all parties want to be involved in. Really, have you found that your sort of path as you move through sort of phone lines and then camming and then OnlyFans, has that helped you understand your own sexuality and your own needs more?
Yeah, I actually got more comfortable with my body when I
Mhm.
started camming. I learned new things about what my body could do that I never really even tried or explored in the past. I learned about different kinks and fetishes. I had no idea there's a fetish for everything, and it really opened my mind in terms of me not feeling shameful about my body and not feeling shameful of others appreciating me too. I know a
Yeah,
lot of people think that we are exploiting ourselves, but this is something I chose to do. I appreciate when people appreciate my body. I don't feel shameful. I think we should be more comfortable with being ourselves and embracing a part of humanity that we don't always get to explore or talk about. And I have a space where I can learn more about myself too and not, feel uncomfortable about what I like too. I mean, I've done some kinks and fetishes with people, and I found things that have turned me on and I didn't know. It's just it's all a learning experience.
definitely. Yeah, it's really interesting that we find it, I think, hard generally to accept compliments. If somebody will say, hair looks nice or nails look nice, you listen, oh my gosh, oh my god. But I think when you're in that environment and people are saying that you're incredibly beautiful, it's nice. People hopefully people generally, if they're buying into your OnlyFans or some of the content that you create, they're buying into it because they're buying into you, and they
Yeah.
could buy into 1,000 other people, a million other people, but there's something about you that attracts them and interests them. And when they're saying things to you, they're meaning it, and that's lovely in any walk of life. When somebody's telling you nice things and you know that they mean them, yeah, that's something we don't do enough in
Yeah.
humanity generally, is tell people nice things. We seem to spend a lot of time looking for negative things as opposed to thinking about actually what can be positive really.
Yeah.
Do you think that society's view of sex and personal pleasure is changing? And the reason I ask that, I guess, is that porn and adult content is so much more available, and even in mainstream films, there's a lot more visual in mainstream magazines and lots of literature. So you feel it's much more out there. Much people are much more aware of different things. Do you feel it's becoming more, not more acceptable? It's a terrible word, but do you think society is sort of embracing it more? But maybe embracing it, but there's not talking about it still.
I think the last one that you said. I think we are embracing it.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many sites. There's phone sex, sub sites, porn. I mean, and these sites are popular. I
yeah,
mean, there's always a new person signing up. But I think, like you said earlier, we're not talking about it. And if we are talking about it, it's always a negative. It's always in a negative light. Which, I mean, I know there's pros and cons to porn, but when I see porn discussed, I always see the anti porn, but I don't always see porn in terms of porn that makes people appreciate their bodies. I don't hear talk about indie porn or authentic porn where people appreciate their fetishes or someone on screen looking like them and them
yeah.
resonating with that form of sexual pleasure. It's always the negative parts. But I do believe people are more curious about it. I always have customers who come to me who it's their first time signing up for a site and they're indulging in some kink or fetish that they don't feel comfortable doing in the real world and they want to try it out. And so there's always a new person that's always curious, and I think that's where it starts is to be curious. So I think there's more platforms coming out there, and I know in the US it's kind of a shaky thing with the ban on porn, but they can only fight it for so long. It's always going to exist in
Absolutely.
some sort of way. I mean, sex work has been around for a very long time and it's not going anywhere. But I do
No.
think we need to talk more about it in terms of the positive aspects that we don't like to acknowledge that are there.
Yeah, I mean, it surprised me when I was talking to somebody a few weeks ago. They were saying that one of the things they get when they talk about it is that there's a feeling from some people that, well, the girls in particular, the girls wouldn't want to do that. Not they're being coerced or persuaded, or you think, well, if you look at OnlyFans, most OnlyFans tends to be solo, and they're doing it. They're so that almost you can see people's brains sort of work. I think, but that can't be. And it's
Yeah.
people get confused, I think, by their openness. But and it's really interesting because the porn industry has always been a big something you're very keen on, innovator. So the porn industry was a massive driver behind DVD, behind Blu-ray. Now it's about virtual. So they've always had the money to invest in these things.
Yeah.
They've been the ones that have innovated to move forward. So it used to
Yeah.
be magazines, VHS tape, and then suddenly
Exactly.
they really dominated the market and thought, actually, we can do this in a much different way. So it is a very professional industry in some ways, and in other ways, you still have accessibility for somebody that's at home with their iPhone and a ring light, and that's it. And it's still accessible to people, and that might be more what some people are interested in. It's interesting what you said before about seeing people like them or with similar body shapes, or seeing people of different ethnicities, seeing people of different ages. I think that's what I think lots of the indie stuff helps with, being able to go and find something that actually really is what you want. 'Cause there's so much out there. It doesn't have to be the very standard
Right.
porn that people think about when they think about porn.
I always see porn about fake boob or posts about fake boobs and fake bodies, but that's not always the truth. I mean, there's porn.
No.
You can literally Google your body type and find a video that looks just like you. I mean, and then in terms of what you said about innovating, I mean, look at TikTok. I mean, people can go
Yeah,
live and get paid for it. There's been live camming where we get paid, to be on camera. That's the
yeah,
same thing, except it's not sexual, and that comes from camming, being live, and people paying for you to be on camera for your presence and for
yeah.
your aura. But it seems like it's not a problem when it's not sexual versus when it's you being comfortable in your skin and getting paid for it as well. It just looks differently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny, isn't it? They had that big thing during lockdown called Cameo, where celebrities, whatever, could record a message and stuff. Everything. Well, but they've been doing this for so many years that
Yeah.
you record customs and literally whatever people want, really. Just people seem to piggyback on the back of the adult industry for innovations, which is just a bit odd.
They
So
do.
how did you come to start the Spicy Spectrum podcast, which is brilliant, by the way, something I would
Thank
ever
you.
aspire to do. How did you come about it? How do you come up with your topics? How do you how do you enjoy it? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, so I started Spicy Spectrum because I wanted to show a different side of me. I know most people were used to seeing the spicy side of me or the undressed part of me, but I wanted them to see more of the intellectual side of
Mhm.
me and them to know me behind the camera and what I thought about working in the industry. Um, a lot of my listeners are men, and I speak about recognizing the humanity of men when it comes to desires and sexuality, because a lot of the times, just like porn, when you hear the sexuality of men, it's always painted in a negative light, but people don't fully understand. And I think being a sex worker has allowed me to see what often happens in the dark when it comes to men, and what they like and what they can't say out loud. And that's what I talk about on my podcast. I address sexuality and sex and de- desires in a way that it teaches people too who may not be in our industry, about what happens and the deeper meaning behind our sexual fantasies. Yeah.
It's fascinating. So I talked to a dominatrix earlier this week, and she
Yep.
was talking about she's quite young. She's based in Romania, and she was fabulous. And she was saying something very similar, really, in that she allows her clients to expose themselves, not in a naked way, but just expose who they are. Really, they might be, senior business people. They might be work at a petrol station. They might be whatever, but they have this need to let go and let somebody else take control, and something not comfortable with in their private lives, if you like. But I've come to find actually this helps them be who they are, because if we, it's like so many things, isn't it? If we don't allow ourselves to be who we want to be, or to try the things you want to try, then it's sort of just restricting our growth, really. And some things you want to try, I'm sure we don't enjoy and don't do again, and which is fine. But if there's something and we're holding back, or being repressed, I guess is the right word. It's a difficult thing.
Yeah. No, yeah, sexuality is one of the last pieces in my belief in terms of us growing as humans, that we are kind of it's like a pushback, but it's necessary. We won't progress as a society if we keep pushing our humanity under the rug.
Yeah,
And sex work, when customers come to us, they can't lie to us. They take off that mask. A lot of them live double lives and they show one face in public. And when they come to us, they can finally have that release. And that's why our industry is so important, because we do provide a space where you can't have that pent up sexual charge, or that, those fantasies that you can't always say out loud. People
yeah.
need a space to do that.
It pretty helps with your psychology background. It's part physical therapist, part, and because I'm sure and even when people first arrive, it's sort of trying to almost say, look, it's okay, just talk about it. I'm here to listen, and you let them be themselves. Really, can you tell me a little bit about something I found really fascinating, Dream Girl Chronicles, and the innovation around create your dream girl experience?
Yeah, so I'll start with Design Your Dream Girl. I
Mhm.
basically started Design Your Dream Girl to provide a safe place for customers to feel like they can indulge in a naughty fantasy, or just any type of fantasy or indulgence without feeling shame. And so it's a space where I can provide chats, video chats, customized videos, messaging, where they can live out their fantasy, and create it in a customized way that they see fit. And I decided to make Dream Girl Chronicles kind of like a spinoff of that. I have a background in film, so I love to edit videos and create storylines. And Dream Girl Chronicles is an erotica series where each episode is different. I always have some different type of adventure with me and the viewer as the POV, where it's a storyline that relates to some type of kink or fetish. I mostly do interracial. I love interracial love, and it's very personal to me. And so I add that aspect to it. But it always, I mean, there's always a different story. It's not always that. And I started to do Dream Girl Chronicles because I saw, which I do appreciate the content that's out there, but I think there's room for more creativity and more of storylines. And I just wanted to add my personal touch to the adult industry from a creative background, but still have that sexy aspect to it, and show a different side of porn that people may not always get to experience.
It's very, very innovative and different way of looking at things, and I think it's a very different experience. I think when people maybe come across porn, talked before about big boobs and big butt, and it's a milf with a stepson or whatever, but you sort of, because obviously the way they clip it up on these channels, it's literally within 2 seconds they're naked and having sex. Well, okay, and it sounds crazy to think, well, there's no story, but who wants a story in porn? But you do really. You want a people want a. That's why striptease don't start naked. They have a slow reveal. They want to people get excited by the reveal and the build up and everything. So I think that's what the chronicles and the story give you really, and it sort of gives more than just. Wonderful though it is for people to see you naked. It's the bit before that and the sort of the thought that they're actually seeing and being involved in the whole story. So I think yeah. So has that been
Yeah.
successful?
Yeah, people love it. I mean, they're always asking for part two, even though that wasn't my intention. And they're like, "Oh, when is part two of such and such story being dropped?" They like it because it feels like a movie, or they relate to some type of experience that
Yeah,
I'm portraying on cam. They love seeing me cook or seeing me just do
yeah,
everyday
yeah,
activities, taking a shower, and that being the build up, like you said, or doing some sort of activity. I love yoga, and I've done those series with me doing yoga, but adding a naughty aspect to them being put into and to my story. I always just like to integrate my own talents or anything that shows the human side of me too, and I think they appreciate the balance of the different parts of humanity that I show on screen, but
mm,
still keep that naughty aspect, but show different parts of my personality too. Yeah, and the dialogue with me speaking, because believe it or not, the videos that sell for me are the ones where I speak to them as opposed to me just sitting there and playing with myself
yeah.
and appearing on camera naked.
Mhm.
Like they like the build up. They like me speaking to them and saying trigger words that feel personal to them and that they've always thought but they couldn't say out loud. That's what they really like. Yeah.
You just get to know more of the person, don't you? With you hear the voice and hear them doing some like say regular things and
Yeah.
cooking, chopping vegetables, whatever. It's just they feel part. They feel more. I don't know, more involved, really. I guess, as opposed to just being a complete bystander that just is looking into the bedroom window and they get to see through the kitchen window and through the bathroom window.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
different. How does your work impact or affect or influence your personal life? Is there and maybe that's a bad question. That almost assumes that there's two sides of you. There's the working side, and then there's the non-working side. They might be
Yeah.
much more closely interlinked than I think. How does it impact your personal life?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely more curious about those around me. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Especially with men, when I interact with them, I'm always wondering. To be honest, it's hard to turn it off. Where I'm like, oh, I wonder what they're into, or I wonder what kind of kinks or fetishes they're into. But honestly, I know people have recognized me in person. For the most part, it's kind of my dirty little secret. So most people see me as one way. I'm kind of the good girl in
Uh-huh.
public, and they don't know what I do behind closed doors. My family does know. They see it as a business. They're proud of me for being able to purchase a home and travel and be financially responsible and not ask them for money or sit in the basement and just be
Yeah,
an unproductive member of society. I mean, they really appreciate me being financially independent. My friends know. I've told people in my personal life who I've met for the first time, and they're always curious about what I do. They always ask questions. In terms of my dating, my partners have not seen a problem with it. They knew that it was a business. I mean, I don't fall in love with my customers. My customers may fall in love with me, but I don't. It's not a relationship in terms of us dating or anything like that. So I've never had a problem with that. I know I've mentioned it to a couple of people. Some of them may have a problem with it because of their religious background, but for the most part, most people are just curious about it, and I'm more curious about people now. Um, I don't judge people as much as I used to. I'm not gross out about anything. I can talk about sex easily. It doesn't make me feel uncomfortable. And also, when it comes to men, I feel like I have more empathy for them because they are mostly my customers,
Yeah.
and I of course I don't speak for men, but I have a greater appreciation for them, and I understand them more because they show me sides of them that they can't show to anyone else. And so when I interact with them in person, yeah, I understand in terms of the sexual drive that is often misunderstood, and I don't judge them for it. Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes when you're at a dinner party and you turn to the person next to you, what do you do? Oh, I work in retail. What do you do? I'm an engineer. And they ask you, and there's definitely going to be a follow up conversation.
Oh
You're not
yeah.
going to think, okay, engineer. What am I going to say? You're an engineer. Do you build things? But yeah, I guess people just always start off. How did you get into that? And then it just becomes more. By the end of the night, when people have had a few drinks, they're just giving away their deepest, darkest desires. And yeah, no, I like, and it's just nice because you don't often get to talk to somebody about this stuff, and
Yeah.
feeling comfortable to do it. One thing that I have found, and you've mentioned in your podcast actually, is that for some reason this generation or a generation of men seem to be lonelier than they have done before. They start relationships later in life, and they struggle to connect with people. Um, and I wondered how we overcome that challenge, because obviously people need to get together physically at some point.
Right.
And yeah, I just don't know why men seem to be lonely. Whether it's because society's beaten down on men a little bit and made them feel that they need to hold back and stuff. And is that something you come across when you talk to clients, that they're lonely?
Yeah, so when I first started this, I got mostly mid-age and older.
Mhm.
Most recently, I've noticed an increase of men in their 20s. A lot of men who have expressed to me that they're virgins, that they've never dated before, and that they find it difficult to date right now. And a lot of them are struggling with some form of loneliness. Some of
Yeah,
them are socially awkward. Um, I meet them where they are. And I think that's the biggest misconception. I do know that some people totally depend on our services, which I am not. I don't agree with that. I think there's always a healthy balance and a healthy
yeah,
indulgence that people should do. Just like when people eat candy or drink beer or something like that. There's always a healthy balance, and but I do think there are an increased number of younger men coming to me. I think because society too, it's changing really fast, and a lot of men feel like they have no place or they don't know what
mm,
their role is now that more women are making money or more women aren't wanting to get married or have children now. What they're saying is that, to me, that they feel like they don't know what their role is anymore, and they don't feel like they have a purpose because the roles are changing and the world is changing too.
it's a big responsibility when somebody comes to you and has that conversation. They're lucky they come to you and maybe not somebody else.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, because
so
some
if
people aren't too nice about it.
well, yeah, yeah, I can imagine. If someone has perhaps held something back, a desire or a fancy or a passion, whatever, how would you recommend somebody explores their own sexuality and becomes a more authentic version of themselves? What could and should somebody do?
Well, I'm really big on consent and boundaries.
Mhm.
If anyone wants to explore, sign up for a site and make sure the person is comfortable doing it with them, and tell them what you want, and just and just go for it. I love, honestly, I think live camming or personal experiences are a little bit more personal as opposed to porn, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I know people have different ways of communicating and they may not feel comfortable.
Hmm.
Searching videos, legal, that may have a fantasy that you are wanting to learn more about and not feeling shameful after it. I mean, it's natural to have fantasies. It's a part of who we are, and just to be honest, and don't always jump in so quickly. I mean, you can do a cam show and do a little bit of it and see how you feel about it, and if you want to indulge more, if you want a dominatrix, for example, I'd say go for it, and not feel like you are feel shameful or guilty, because you shouldn't feel guilty for something that's natural. Yeah.
I think yeah, very sensible. I think there's no doubt that whatever somebody's feeling or into or thinks about, somebody else is thinking about it.
Yeah.
No matter what you're imagining, no matter what it is,
Right.
somebody else has had the same thought. Many hundreds of people have, thousands of people have.
Oh yeah.
So there's probably very, very little new in sex. I'm sure our Victorian ancestors were just as kinky as we are today, really.
Yeah.
What, so what are your hopes and dreams for the future? So you've already done so much in your life. Where do you see the next sort of few periods of your life going? What do you think you'll be doing?
I want to expand Design Your Dream Girl,
Mhm.
hopefully be behind the scenes of that and just having other adult entertainers sign up and offer fantasies to make customers feel comfortable with being open with their desires. I may still cam here and there because I I do love my customers. I mean, I've been with them for years, and a part of me still likes it.
Mhm.
And also expanding my podcast. I would love to travel and speak to people more about being open to your desires and not hiding it, and sharing my perspective as an adult entertainer. I feel like there's not a lot of voices out there right now, in terms of sharing such a taboo industry, and a lot of people have misconceptions, and so I want to continue to spread the word and share why sex work is so important and necessary. And then I want to travel too, and travel, and just enjoy my life. But I love doing this line of work, and maybe one day a TED talk, and just
Yeah.
be on screen where other people can really hear my voice and
Yeah.
hear what I have to say, and be more open to hearing voices like mine on mainstream platforms.
Yeah, it's funny when you think about it. Whenever you hear politicians or experts talking about it, it's never people that have been, been involved at all. It's people that think they have an understanding of what it is. So their voices almost shouldn't count really. It's like having somebody that's never been to medical school coming on and talking about how you should recover after heart surgery. It doesn't make
Right.
any sense. But I guess we just become that way. So how do you look after your own physical well-being? You said yoga and mental well-being. You've got to be in good shape, I guess, mentally and physically to do what you do. How do you look after yourself?
Yeah, I take walks. I never, when I wake up, I look at my phone after 4 hours. I don't even check my notifications. I go on walks. I play with my dog. I meditate. I love art, so I'll go to art museums and art festivals. I love traveling around the world and cooking. I like to separate my life and not always indulge myself in the adult industry, even though it can be difficult to work all the time. I try
Yeah.
to just space it out and have my own life and play sports. And I know some people still recognize me in public, so I can't really get away from that. But just doing activities that I love. I'm going to get some chicken soon and garden this summer, and just really take time to myself too,
Mm.
to enjoy what I love doing and not think about work all the time. Yeah.
It's important, isn't it? We should give ourselves love before we give love to anybody else. We've got to look after
Yeah.
ourselves. And where do you want to travel to? Where are the dream places?
Morocco, Barcelona.
Barcelona's lovely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've never been there.
it's very cool.
Somewhere, I've never been to South America yet,
Hmm.
or Africa, or Australia. So those are the top three continents that I want to explore more too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to South
What
Africa a
about
few times, and it's beautiful.
you?
And
Hmm.
Australia's fabulous. I've been there a lot of times, and it's just a long way away.
It is a
So
long way.
at least if you come to London or you go to Madrid or whatever, you
Hmm.
can then go to Paris and Milan and Rome, and you can do lots
Right.
of things at once. You can do 10 countries in 10 days if you want to. But if you're in Australia, you're in Australia, and it's
Right.
amazing. But yeah, you need to be there for a good few weeks. Because
Yeah.
I mean, they have this sort of from desert to rainforest to beautiful surf. People are very relaxed. Yeah, it's a nice place.
Yeah.
London,
Yeah. I've never been there, and I do want to visit London too. That's another
yeah,
place.
London's
Yeah.
cool. It's very well connected everywhere else, and it has good things, it has bad things, but it has a lot of things you would expect. So a lot of history, a lot of amazing art, a lot of amazing sport, a lot of amazing outdoor things. So yeah, it's definitely worth a visit. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
happy to show you around if you come.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
love that.
it's a lovely place. Well, I just want to thank you so much for your time and your openness. You've been really kind and really generous. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to hear my perspective and being so respectful to me as well. Yeah.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate that.